All right, everybody, we're sitting here talking to AJ Ryder, formerly known as Troy McClain. How's it going?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good, man. Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, well, thank you for coming on.
Oh yeah, we were surprised that you messaged back. We couldn't believe it.
No.
So first of all, before we get going too far, this is our first professional wrestler. We usually stick to kind of football.
Oh well, I'm honored.
Yeah, we usually kind of do. We get more interaction with football players with the way we the way we reach out, and we've got a
We've gotten a
couple.
little MMA,
Yeah,
boxing, but yeah, it's mainly been NFL.
yeah, it's mostly been NFL and just pro football. So and WWE is kind of why we started our whole channel anyway. So this is a big step for us. We're pretty proud of it.
Right on. That's awesome. I'm glad to be your to pop your L's cherry.
All right.
Uh,
So yeah, we're talking to AJ Ryder, formerly known in NXT as Troy McClain, and I'm sure that's where I think it's safe to say that's probably where most of your fan base is from, if you would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of what as a young kid were you just interested in professional wrestling, or what, like, what got you here?
Well, when I was as a kid, I don't think I was. Now, when I was in NXT, obviously there was, I mean, guys who'd been doing it for 20 years, 10 years prior, before I got there, and I kind of really only started a few months before I signed my contract with NXT, and then as a kid, I didn't. It's not that I didn't watch it; it just wasn't as prevalent in my household as it was for most people. It would be on, my dad would have it on, I would watch it, and then there would be times where, because we're talking like, when I was 10 years old, it was right in the middle of the like Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars, and it was a little bit too much for, I think, my mom and dad to want me to see at the time, like a little bit too PG-13. So I watched it when I could, and I kind of snuck it on when I could. I got really into it though once I got into college, and rediscovered Shawn Michaels, who was my favorite back, in the 90s and stuff, and then back in when he was doing the angle with of course, the end of the career, with at WrestleMania 25 and the whole thing with Taker. After he had hurt his back and became more of that, the unbelievable salesman that he was towards the end of his career as he got older, is when I really, really decided, like, that's like, okay, this is, I want to do this. And then obviously, who didn't love The Rock and like Stone Cold and all
Yeah.
those guys during that era too, especially when you're 10 years old in middle school at the time or whatever. So, but no, it was more along the lines, once I was in playing college football, I decided, like, I knew I wasn't going to make the NFL, but that I can do. Like, I'm athletic enough, and I think I've got the personality enough to the point, like, I'm like, this is something that, I really, really, really can sink my teeth into and have a lot of fun doing. And so I ended up pursuing that, and came pretty close.
Where'd you play college football at?
Eastern Illinois University.
East what?
Eastern Illinois.
Oh, Eastern Illinois. Okay, it kind of broke up.
Yeah.
It sounded here like you said East Carolina. It kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh, no.
Man.
How'd you kind of make the transition? Did you like send in a tape or something?
Well, I was out here in LA, where I'm at now, and I was working at USC, also not South Carolina, Southern California.
Yeah.
Um, and I was working as a strength and conditioning intern while I was getting my master's degree, and I went to the LA Fitness Expo, and I happened to meet Rikishi and Gangrel. They had a booth there, and they were promoting Knox Pro, which is doing really well now. By the way, out here, and I literally talked with them for about 30 seconds. They gave me a card, told me where the school was at, and the next day, I was up in Sun Valley, California. I'm like, all right, let's get this going. Like I'm ready to start. Training right then and there. Because obviously, like when you see Rikishi and Gangrel in real life, you're just kind of like, they have a school, they're going to teach me. That's awesome. Like this is it. So that kind of happened by chance almost. But as soon as I seen the opportunity, I was like, yes, I'm there. Like I knew that's when the journey started, and then from there it was just kind of like a very quick few months, and next thing you know, I was at the tryout here in LA during SummerSlam, and then 6 months later, I was down in Tampa.
So
that's crazy.
So for like a wrestling school like Knox, like what goes on at a wrestling academy like that? Like what do you do like on a day-to-day thing? Like how does it start out? And
well, the first thing they do, the conditioning for something like that is like anything you've ever done. And that I can tell you firsthand because I was coming from college football. I was a strength and conditioning coach. You'd think I would have been like in great shape myself, which I was. But the conditioning for wrestling is so much different than anything else because it's not like you're just running around and wrestling, but you also are acting at the same time. So while you're doing all the moves and everything, you're also having to make the facial expressions. You have to show emotion. You have to connect with the crowd, which takes a lot more energy out of you than you would think it does. So the conditioning for that, I mean, when you're running around, like you might be running the ropes, but you have to sing a song while you're running the ropes because you're constantly talking, during the match to the crowd, doing whatever, so anything like that. I mean, it's incredible. And then also learning how to take a bump and learn how to do everything safely is really, really key. And then eventually you move on to, working for television, working towards camera, being aware of where your hard cam is, the cameras on the sides are, and playing to the crowd and everything. They teach you a lot of stuff. There's a lot more that goes into it than you think.
What is it like? I've heard a lot of people say the first bump you take when you hit the ring, it's like you can't even imagine like how bad it hurts and all that.
It depends on what kind of ring you've got. I would imagine.
I know you don't want to do it on a boxing ring, from what I've heard from a lot of guys.
Yes, yeah, you do not want to do it on a boxing ring. Luckily, Knox Pro had a pretty good ring at the time. It's still, you're teaching your body to do something that it doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember the first time when I met Cena before I had my tryout and told him what I was doing, and he said, his exact words were, "You want to fall down for a living?" Like that's what which is basically, which is a great way to put it because that's kind of what you do. So yeah, it's some people take to it quickly, some people have a hard time, but once you, I took to it pretty well. I thought for the first few times that I did it, it was because having played in football, like my body was beat up to hell already, so I was just kind of just like whatever.
Yeah, I was about to say playing college football probably helped a lot.
Yeah. I've heard even hitting the ropes kind of like cuts your skin up the first couple days.
If you train without a shirt on, yeah.
Yeah, there was like I remember like we were watching Randy Orton when he came back like a year and a half ago or something like that.
Yeah, he was off TV for a few months.
Yeah, he tried to come back and he tweeted out a picture of his back. He was like hit the ropes for the first time in a while and his back looked like he got in a freaking a whipping match or something like that.
There's a big transition too from going from, I remember the first time I was in the WWE ring as opposed to your most rings on like the indie circuit, because the indie circuit's got all the rings most of them are the ropes are cables.
Yeah,
They're not
burlap.
the actual. Yeah, they're not the actual rope, as opposed to the WWE ring, which is an actual rope. Like
a burlap, like a serious burlap, like tie up a cow with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just with tape on it, and that'll that hurts for a while. That's something that takes a little bit to get used to.
You probably develop like real serious calluses and stuff on your back. Like I would imagine. I mean, you have to.
I mean, you definitely. I don't know about calluses. Maybe he did. I don't know. It's on my back. I couldn't see it. But, but no, there's a learning curve, and there's it's like anything else. Your body eventually adapts, and you don't notice it. But for the first few times, especially when the first time you do it is at your tryout, that's something different. I remember, after my tryout, my back was pretty ripped up.
So, what was your first? I'm reading here. It said you debuted as Xander Jones, and you were in like a tag team match, a 6-man tag match. Was that with the Academy where you did that?
That was at Knox Pro. Yeah, and the first match I ever had, I took the stink face from Rikishi.
That's like a good welcome to the business.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the time, I was really big at the time. I was probably around when I was in WWE, I was probably about 220. And then when I was at Knox Pro, I was probably about 240.
You're about 6'3", right? I said.
Yeah, about 6'3", 6'4". They had billed me just like this Brock Lesnar type, big, strong dude, which I am not. I'm a strong dude, but you know what I mean. I found my character later on in WWE. More of the Ric Flair kind of chicken shit heel. Having more fun with it than the big tough guy. But I remember the first time I got tagged in and I squared off straight with Rikishi, and the whole thing was he's like duck one and then and start coming after me. So I ducked his first punch, and then the first punch I ever threw, I decked him right in the jaw.
Oh man!
And so that was like, shit, I don't know if I can cuss. Sorry.
You're good.
So yeah, that was one of those things where it's just kind of like, that's going to come back and haunt me later.
Sometimes they say a lot of the new guys are they're almost too soft. So I mean, at least you didn't have that problem.
I would say that there's not many people. When I threw punches, there's not many people. I didn't miss much. If I threw a punch, I was either gonna look pretty good or it was gonna connect. And when it connected, I definitely expected a receipt in return. You know what I mean? That's how it works, because. Especially when you're when you're in WWE and they're preaching realism, I'd rather get hit than have a guy miss by a mile.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can at least be like, guys, I can make this look real. I mean, I promise I can do that.
It's all about the strong style nowadays, anyway.
Yeah, I promise I can do that part. I'm good at it.
Wow, that punch looked really real. Yeah, well, it hurt it was real too.
Oh man, that's funny. So what was it like? I mean, whenever you took the ring with Rikishi, was it like a? I mean, you said you done it through Knox Pro, so it was like a big, gymnasium or like an auditorium. Like, what was it? Where'd y'all have it at?
They had what they call the domain, and it was our training center, but they had a big warehouse, and they would fill that thing. I mean, because when you've got two
giant names,
bigger stars from the 90s, and Rikishi and Gangrel, and I remember they had the Too Cool reunion there before. I mean, they would pack that place to the point now where I don't even know. I've seen them go to all over the place and pack bigger buildings now. I mean, there was events during NXT where we would wrestle in front of 15 people before NXT got big up because of the network. And Knox Pro we would fit 300 people inside of this warehouse, and they'd be standing on top of each other. So they drew a big crowd. They drew a really good crowd there. They did a really great job of always having made a really good fan base. Yeah.
Did Rikishi and them did they kind of help you get into NXT? They still knew some people, or did you do a whole different path?
Well, I actually got to go to Raw 1000 with Rikishi.
Oh, nice.
He took me there, but my initial contact with WWE was through John Cena, who I met while I was still working at USC. I told you about the you want to fall down for a living thing, and Cena, every bit as advertised, is as generally as good of a person as there is. I mean, when you see him on TV and the 1000 Make-A-Wish things that he's done, I mean, he is legitimately that kind of person in real life. So he told me, he's like, look, just get a hold, contact me like once a month, just let me know how things are going.
That's crazy.
And then a couple months later, I get an email because all of a sudden, my stuff got in the hands of the right people, and that's how I got my tryout. And once I had the opportunity at the tryout, I took full advantage of that. But then also with Rikishi, taking me to Raw, to getting to meet a lot of the guys beforehand, I felt like was good too. Kind of made me feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that I had met William Regal prior to going into who was one of the judges at my tryout, and having met Scott Armstrong for my tryout, and meeting those guys before I go in there, instead of having to go in there for the first time not knowing them. At least I had made contact and
that was a good way to make first impression.
Had that experience. Yeah, exactly. So
they had everybody at that Raw too. They had a ton of people booked on that one.
Yeah. I actually one of the coolest things about it was I got to sign. Yeah, I don't know if you remember the T-shirt Roddy Piper wore. He had everyone sign the T-shirt.
Yeah.
He actually, I don't think he knew who I was, and I told him, like, I don't know if you want me to sign it, and he's like, no, you're part of the family. You can sign it. And so yeah, I think the picture that you see, you can see my signature on there somewhere.
That is insane.
But I thought awesome. That was really cool. Yeah.
That's like being a part of history.
Yeah, and then also too, I was also I was not long before he passed. He was at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which I was doing at the time, maybe 2 weeks before. So I got to meet him and talk with him one more time, like before he passed away. And so that was another really cool, something I'm really thankful for, because he's a guy who was, just iconic,
Yeah.
And,
God, yeah.
So so just getting the opportunity to just a little thing, whether it was sign the T-shirt or to see him one last time and pick his brain for 5 minutes before on that show. It was that's something I was definitely thankful for.
Yeah, sharing an experience with somebody like him is just something that's something you'll never forget.
It's priceless, man. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had one question about Knox Pro I forgot to ask, and I just not thought about it. I've heard a couple interviews with him. Were you there the same time? Wasn't Rusev there? Were you there with him?
That's a funny story. No, Rusev was there before I was. I want to say
it had to be close.
Maybe a year.
Yeah, I was about to say it had to be close, because he came on.
Yeah, he was there for probably about a year, but that also, but then that also kind of gave us a connection once I got there. So I wasn't like, just showing up kind of by myself, like, hey guys, like at least, when I got there,
You had Rusev like as a
I didn't know him, but I sort of knew him and stuff. And then, we've been friends ever since. I mean, we'll still play FIFA online against each other, all the time and stuff.
That's crazy.
Man,
Yeah.
that dude is that Rusev Day thing. That thing got over so quick. That's crazy. How crazy! Like that's insane. How over that got.
It was nuts because Lana actually came in about the same time I did, and I remember, the the first time they did a promo together. It went over huge, and then the next thing you know, the two of them were on TV, on NXT TV. After she had been there for probably 3 months. That's how quickly that thing got going, and then it just took off and never stopped.
Were they always like actually together in real life, or was that just something that developed over time?
That's a weird one for me to answer. I'm not sure if I'm in trouble.
You can plead the fifth if you want to. That's
Yeah.
We went to I went to a Florida State Miami game with them. When Florida State was ranked number 1, James Winston won the Heisman in that year.
Yeah.
And I think I probably knew before everyone else did that they were kind of together. It was they were together for a long time.
We'll just say kinda.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So obviously making the transition from Knox Pro to NXT and WWE developmental, that was probably the biggest transition I'd say of your career if I had to guess. Just getting to the biggest name in the world as far as your profession goes. Do you remember like whenever you first got started, like going in and like was Dusty Rhodes there? Like we just kind of want to hear like the whole layout.
Yeah. So when we first got there, we were still in Tampa. And I remember, the first day just showing up and thinking to myself, like, okay, like I knew who some of these guys were just because I would check out like the NXT web, or it was NXT at that time, the NXT website, and like knowing who the guys were and stuff. And then I remember one of the first days I was there, Dean Ambrose was still down there at the time because the Shield was still technically like down in NXT, but they were making their appearances on WWE television. And I remember just kind of going up to Dean Ambrose, shaking his hand, and you could just tell he did not give a shit that I was there at all.
They were ready to get out.
They were definitely they were on the way out, and I was like, okay, so that didn't go as well as I'd hoped. No, but then the first promo class I had, that Dusty ran, because he had run all the promo classes that I was there, and I remember the first one that I had, I don't even remember what my promo was because I think I was too nervous to do anything. But no, Dusty he was always a huge supporter of mine. Like to the point where I couldn't believe it, especially when I went down the line when I created the character that I did for so long, and that he loved it and was really big on it, and he was always one of my biggest supporters, and I always thought that was really cool because when you got the endorsement of the American Dream, like that's a
Does it get better?
What can anybody else say?
That's a big deal. And so he was always he's always in my corner, and right like from day one, as soon as I got there, which was really great. No, just the training alone, just having come from sports in general, made it sort of, I don't want to say an easy transition, but it was something I was more prepared for going in there. Because when you're playing college football, especially you're always, even though you've got these teammates, you're still fighting for a job at the same time. You're fighting for that starting spot, whether even though there's your friends are all on the team with you, and whatever position you're playing. Say you're playing a wide receiver, and there's 8 other wide receivers on the team. They're all your friends, and you're all on the same team. You're all going for the same goal. Like in wrestling, the goal is, to put on the best show you can, but at the same time, you want to be that guy. So there's that level of competition, and also camaraderie as well. So it was I was prepared for it in a way, and so I thought I adapted fairly well.
I loved your I don't want to call it your gimmick, but it was like a motivator type thing. I thought it was awesome.
The Tony Robbins kind of thing.
Yeah, I watched one of your clips. I thought it was I don't know if you were trying to be funny or doing the heat, but I thought it was doing both. I really liked it.
That was something that actually me and Brian Saxton kind of developed the idea originally, and then Nick Dinsmore came in and made it even better. And
that's Eugene for everybody.
Yes, yeah. Who's one of the best coaches, I think.
One of the best WWE superstars ever, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that dude is a genius.
Nick. Oh man, I learned so much from that guy, being in his class. Just to be whether it be the psychology or whatever.
Committing to a character.
Yeah, he's a genius is almost an understatement, man.
Yeah, it really is.
He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible.
He got technically sound wrestler too,
Oh yeah, it's weird to think that when you look back at the Eugene character, but when he's just Mr. Wrestling Nick Dinsmore or whatever what was his name, and I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
No, man, but yeah, he is so good. It's unbelievable.
People would make fun of it, his character, whenever they would do a promo, then they'd get in the ring and he would out wrestle him. It was, I always liked that.
Yeah, I learned a lot from that guy. Me and I don't know if you remember, there was a dude named Travis Tyler there at the time. I remember we both. At one point in time when Nick first got there, were in his class, and that was being in his class for a few months was the big turnaround for us as far as starting to get it, really starting to pick up, whether it be little character things, whether it be the technical aspect, whether it's storytelling. That's when it really started to change. I know, especially for me, having come in there and wrestled for maybe 3 months prior to going to being in WWE. That's when the light bulb started to flicker a little bit. And a lot. There's a lot thanks to him. But all the coaches there too were great, especially Norman Smiley. I can't thank that guy enough for spending so much extra time with me down in once we moved to Orlando. I remember we'd normally wrestle for about 3 hours in the ring as a group, and I'd stay after with Norman all the time just to work on whatever I could pick, whatever we could come up with. And then we'd hear Bill DeMott come over the intercom, and he'd be like, "Troy McClain, go home." You've been here long enough, go home. So
people notice that though, whenever they're remembering who worked and who didn't. I think it. I definitely. There were times where I know Terry Taylor as well, which was another really cool thing for me. That's crazy! I didn't know he was down there.
Well, he would come down there and he would work. He'd be a producer at NXT shows, and then sometimes they'd bring down. I remember I was working with I got to work a lot with Sandow when he was starting to get big, and
Oh, nice.
and a lot of the guys who were just trying to come up with new things, and they'd work with Terry when he was down there. I guess Terry did coach a class down there for a little while too. But given the opportunity, Terry had always, have me work with those guys and stuff, and whether they were trying to figure out new moves, but I got to learn a lot from just listening to him, and I know Shawn Michaels, who obviously was my inspiration for WWE, credited Terry Taylor for being the one who taught him, how to really sell and connect with an audience, So whenever I had the chance to be around him, I'd always love listening to him talk, and pick his brain too as well. It was, the coaching staff down there, man. You can't ask for a better group of people, especially even though I know he's not there anymore, but Billy Gunn.
Yeah, I've heard some good stuff about him.
Yeah, Billy Gunn. When sort of like football too as well. When I play, once you you go to college and the game starts to become your job. It changes. Like football. When I got to college, wasn't. I don't want to say it wasn't fun, but it wasn't. It wasn't,
a little bit more scientific.
It wasn't you out there with your buddies anymore. There was a little bit more of a, that feeling of I have to, this is the job now. And that's kind of how wrestling was once you get down there. But Billy Gunn was the guy who could make you forget that, you're getting paid for this, guys, and but have fun with it. Like, this is your job, and there's a lot on the line. But if you're not gonna have fun, then what's the point? Type of thing.
Is he full on like Billy Gunn all the time? I feel like he is.
He really is. Yeah.
Okay. I've watched interviews with him, and I'm like, this dude doesn't turn it off. I love it.
There's no persona there. That's just him. All the time. Yeah, he's hysterical too.
That dude's hilarious. I like Billy Gunn a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. He does seem like that guy who just can't. He never turns it off.
I love it.
Oh yeah. When you were in Billy's class, it's definitely something you always look forward to, because there'd be. I remember we'd stretch as a group every day, and we'd do we'd have like this, weird prayer circle as we would all do a certain stretch, and Billy would pray to the wrestling gods and basically just bury everyone in this class. And so he is Billy Gunn 100% of the time, all the time, and it's by no means, and it's awesome to be around.
So kind of in winding down here, just a couple quick questions. Like, whenever you, I think I was reading your last match in NXT was, didn't you tag with Elias?
My last match in NXT was against Baron Corbin.
Oh, okay, that's this page is wrong.
Did I? And then I think before that, I tagged with Elias against the Ascension, maybe?
Yeah, something. I had it pulled up on a page somewhere. It was saying something about tagging with them, but
something like that. Yeah.
So like whenever you like seeing these guys, these guys are like, both of those guys I would say are pretty much an Elias. That dude, we were talking about it watching Raw Monday night. That dude is like, he's like a main eventer right now. I mean, he's not getting like the end of the road, the end of the Raw match, but like when he comes out and he does his guitar and he asks who wants to walk with Elias, I mean, that's like the loudest pop of the night every Monday. Maybe next to Rollins.
It's insane to see some of like right now the guys that I was down there with in the trenches with, and to see how they've evolved and what they're doing now, man, it's nuts.
Yeah,
I remember when Carmella first came in. and she was like very timid, and she was just this girl who we knew was a Patriots cheerleader, and now she's just broken out of her shell, and
Best heel
is a
champion
totally
right now in the company.
yeah. I mean it's unbelievable, to see the development that all of these guys who I all consider friends still, like what they do now. It's crazy.
Yeah, Carmella. We've personally had our own opinion that she is hands down the best heel champion. She might be one of the best heels in the company right now. Everything she does is so perfect. Like, she's got her Twitter name changed to like the SmackDown Women's Champion, and like she's doing it so perfect.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, man, I remember her first few weeks. She was in the Nick Dinsmore class with us, and I remember her first trying to take a bump, and she took to it pretty quick. But where she's at now, it's never something that you think you thought in your head, like in a few years, like that's who
yeah, it's hard.
She's gonna become this humongous personality and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard for me to sit here and watch her the way she did on SmackDown, on Tuesday, and then for you to say she was a timid little like nervous person. I'm like, there's just that doesn't even associate with her. Like,
all these people though, like, have that transition.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like that. I mean, I think it's just overwhelming when you get there at first, especially once the Performance Center was, up and running, because that place. I mean, we went from kind of this warehouse in Tampa to this giant facility with this massive weight room and 8 rings and inside of it, and meeting rooms upstairs and offices, and then the whole shebang. You know what I mean?
Do they have like food in there and stuff? Like I don't want to say cafeteria, but like anywhere like catering.
It had its own little kitchen, where you could bring your own food and stuff. I mean, it might have changed it now, but it had a refrigerator, microwave, the whole
enough
things. Enough. Yeah, so you could bring your own stuff, and it had locker rooms that were. I mean, the locker room was better than my college football locker room.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, I've seen the tours and stuff. It's crazy. Like,
WWE doesn't. They don't. Things like that is what they don't slack on. They don't like at all.
Yeah, I mean, and it was worth it. I mean, every penny they spent on that place was worth it for sure.
Is like in the Performance Center? I mean, is it common to see like a I'm just gonna go all the way to. Is it common to see a John Cena coming in and out of there ever? Does he ever like show up there?
Oh yeah. Cena came down quite a bit. And Stone Cold's been there when Hogan first came back. He came.
Oh my God!
When Hogan first came back, right before WrestleMania 30, he came in and talked to us in full ring gear.
Full gimmick,
weight belt and everything on, like the whole shebang.
I hope he came into his music. I hope he walked in the door.
That would have been something else. But no, he came in and he talked to us and kind of gave us a speech. Taker came down a few times.
That's crazy. That's
crazy.
And
when he comes down too, I mean, you got the whole roster just sitting there in silence.
Yeah, just in awe. You don't even know what to do.
Listening to what this dude's got to say. You know what I mean? It's almost you almost don't even want to ask him a question, even though he's great, and he would if you wanted his advice on something, he would give it to you, but you would almost it'd freak you out to ask. Because it's like the Undertaker, you know what I mean? Like, what if he thinks my question's stupid? Like what? Yeah,
that's awesome. That's good.
Yeah,
that's so
I know CM Punk would go down to the actual NXT shows that he might not have been there when they had that Performance Center.
I met him one time down in Tampa before we moved to the Performance Center. He was there one time, and then he left. Because not long after that is when he left the company.
Pretty cool guy.
Oh yeah, super great guy, super nice.
He
guy.
seems like he's pretty cool.
And he's from Chicago. He's from Illinois. Like I'm from Illinois as well. So we're both kind of got that Chicago
Got that connection a little
connection. Yeah, right.
Justin Roberts, all those guys from Chicago.
Yep.
bit. Dang, man. That's insane. So, after you move on to NXT, you go to the independent circuit. Kind of where did you go for after NXT? Do you remember kind of like?
First place I went to after was Vegas. I went to UNLV to finish my master's degree because I dropped out of school to go to WWE to begin with.
What was your degree in?
Kinesiology.
Cool.
Exercise science kinesiology. Which I obviously I don't use at all. That was a giant waste of time.
But you finished it.
Yeah, but I finished it. Yeah. No, I wrestled out what is it? Future Stars or
FSW.
FSW. Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of the actual name of it. So I wrestled out there. I wrestled with Kevin Cross, who's doing really well now. That's his name, right? Kevin Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a guy who doing really well. A lot of the guys down there, they had some good talent. They would always bring in good talent. And then once I started working there, mostly doing like casino shows, and I started coming back out to LA to do championship wrestling from Hollywood because Eli Drake of TNA was a good friend of mine, and he was working for Dave Marquez out here in LA, and so then I started coming out here to LA to get booked. So I was working just LA and Vegas back and forth, and then finally I just made once I finished my master's, I just made the move to LA because I was eventually going to come back out here anyway, and got the opportunity to do commentary for a long time at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which was probably one of my favorite things, to be totally honest.
Is that hard?
It is. I don't even think I was very good at it. You can still probably go find clips of me at it. I'm not very good, but I just tried to stick as many one-liners in there as I could.
Were you color?
But I worked with some really good guys. Johnny LaQuasto, who's a stand-up comedian. He's a really, really funny guy. And some other guy whose name I don't remember, but he was a newscaster for the longest time. What was his name? I don't know. But I had a lot of fun at Championship Wrestling in Hollywood. Especially because the commentary table, you sit there and basically you just get to, as a heel commentator, you just kind of get to, bury people the whole time and just talk shit about them. And, that's what you're supposed to do.
What's better than that?
Exactly. And I don't have to go take any bumps, or I don't have to do anything. I can just sit there and talk trash, and they don't even know I'm doing it. So getting the opportunity to do that was another really cool thing. And then we had our own little faction there for a while, Pack 3, which got off really well and was a crowd favorite, and that's also grown a lot too since I first started there, because now they're in Arizona. They're being broadcast. They're all over the place now. If through Comcast, I believe. You can get it in a lot of different areas of the country. I know at one point in time, some friends and family could see me back home in Illinois, if they had the right provider. So they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they had an actual production value similar to what WWE would have. Like, as far as, even though it's an indie show, the production value is, they run it like it's they prepare you for TV. They prepare you to be on Raw. They prepare you to be on NXT. Dave Marquez does an unbelievable job out there of putting on a great program. So if if you're someone who's trying to get into wrestling, that is definitely somewhere I would recommend you look into going.
There's not too many indie shows that are going to do like separate themselves from that.
Yeah, I mean, there's because they'll because I think it was when I was at Knox. It's like if you I remember one of the first days I was there. Like they said if you don't want to be on TV, there's no reason for you to be here. That was the whole thing, and I would say that about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. If you don't want to be on TV, then don't go there. But if you want to, especially because I know they watch it a lot. I know WWE watches it because we tried to use Troy McClain as in my name, and we ended up getting a phone call saying, "Hey,
Wow.
You guys can't use that name because that's ours."
So you guys are watching. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they watch that stuff a lot. Because I kept in contact with a lot of the coaches there, like Robbie Brookside, who is a good friend of mine, and then Norman, is a guy who, like I said, I used to spend hours and hours and hours in the ring with him. And they watch that stuff. So, there's a lot of good promotions out there now. Like I know everyone knows Ring of Honor and that stuff, but if you're looking to get into the business, it used to be like the Northeast was where it was at, right? And now it's sort of like the West Coast has got a lot of great places.
It's in Japan
to really enjoy. Yeah, in Japan,
huge.
Another one of my buddies, so it was my roommate Juice Robinson, over in New Japan, doing great. So, yeah.
Dang.
And then now we wanted to hear a little bit about the show you're on now. Is it called Last Chance, right?
Last Chance, yeah. So Last Chance is a show, is a TV pilot that we just shot. Is written by a guy who, an unbelievable writer named Randy Johnson, who's not the former Diamondbacks pitcher. He's much uglier in real life.
But a better writer, probably.
But a better writer, yeah. It's a show about this. It stars a guy named Jonesy, who's a really funny stand-up comedian who plays this former child star, still trying to make it back into the business, going out on these auditions, and he's got this construction crew because that he's the head of, as they're trying to pay the rent while this crew kind of is all striving to go after their dreams. And of course I play a guy who wants to be a professional wrestler named Dash, and we had a great cast. Aaron Schwartz, who I didn't even know it until after we got done shooting, was a former Mighty Duck. He was one of the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, crazy.
We've got Todd Bridges is also in it. It's a really, really, really great show. We're going to be shooting a Christmas episode here shortly as well, while we finish editing and then shopping it around, and trying to get it on, see where we can get it picked up. If not, then we're going to turn it into a YouTube series. And it's a really, really, really funny show. And then also we just we started our own comic book company as well, Big Stick Comics, which will be debuting our first issue of the Samurai Cowboy comic book at Salt Lake City Comic Con, FanX Salt Lake City, I think it's called.
Sweet.
On September 6th.
That's awesome.
So we'll be down there as well. If anybody's in the area, we'll be down there. You can come check out our booth. come check out the comic. It's a really cool story. We have a website if you check it out at bigstickcomics.com.
And we'll tweet that out.
Yeah, we'll share all your stuff about it and all that.
Right on. Appreciate it. It's we've got a lot of great projects in the works right now. This crew that we've gotten together from Last Chance, that we're looking into the rights of looking into buying the rights of a book that we want to also turn into a feature film. Eventually, we want to turn Samurai Cowboy into a trilogy of films. That's why we're writing it the way we're starting off as a graphic novel for now, and then in the transition into that as it goes on. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. That's it's an exciting time, yeah.
I'll put those links in our YouTube bio at the bottom or like the description.
Yeah, we'll put it all in there. So, well, man, we appreciate you talking with us today. Last question.
I got one last question too.
Okay, go first.
I forgot to ask you, what was your finisher when you were wrestling?
Usually I laid on my back and I got pinned.
Best line of the podcast. That was great. That was awesome.
He calls it the 1, 2, 3.
Yep. That was
You've used that response before, I take it.
Yes, people. Yeah. Well, when you're in professional wrestling, or people find out that you were in professional wrestling, that's usually the question everyone asks you is what your finisher was called. And I was like, well, I was a bad guy who didn't win much. So my finisher was I laid on my back, and the other guy got on top of me and lifted my leg up, and then the ref said 1, 2, 3, and that was it.
We counted the lights.
As long as the fans count with the 1, 2, 3, you did your job though. So it's all
hey
good.
Man, yeah. As long as I mean, my finisher got a really big pop every time. I'll say that.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
my question: where'd the Han Solo name come from on Twitter?
So I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I'm a huge nerd in general. If you can't tell that I'm, I started my own comic book company.
Yeah.
While I was in WWE, I just randomly decided one day to change my name to Han Solo, and then I just never really changed it back. And the day they announced that they were making a solo Star Wars story, my Twitter just blew up.
I guarantee it did.
Crazy.
I guarantee
and you're verified already too, so everybody's just like, "What is this?"
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and
so
you really do look like him. Like you really do.
Thank you.
I just thought you filmed like you did like a little, I don't know, like some project or something like that, like some little series.
No, then once they announced that they were doing the movie, then I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it up, and I'm gonna hope Disney takes notice of this.
Yeah, I mean that's
and so yeah, and then I just kept it, and people still to this day will send. I leave my messages open. As you guys know, just because I love hearing people will message me all the time saying they would rather see me in that movie than what's his name, and then I can't. It was like Alden,
I don't even
whatever. Which I mean, I'm not here to say that I'm not saying anything bad about anybody. I've seen the movie. I'm a Star Wars fan. I'll always enjoy that anything that in that universe. But it's always fun to have people tweet at you or message you and tell you that sort of stuff. So I just left it the way it was.
Well, you definitely look like him. It's not even a question. It's not even. But well, man, we do.
Well, that's always a compliment too. Is if someone says you look like Harrison Ford.
Well, man, we really do appreciate you talking with us today and telling your story.
And this was one of the easiest interviews to set up. Probably one of the only guys we've ever had that message us to make sure we're still on. That never happens.
When you
guys said that, I was kind of like, well, I mean, we're going to be in Salt Lake in a month. I figured, Most
Promotion.
people, yeah, if you want to talk about wrestling, I'll talk about wrestling all day long. If you want to talk about comic books, I'll talk about comic books all day long. It doesn't matter to me. Like,
It was an awesome podcast, man. We appreciate you talking with us, and everybody be sure to check everything out.
Follow him, all that stuff.
Yeah, follow. He's going to be in the new Star Wars movie maybe coming up. You never know.
Well, who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
Starting
Man.
the petition tomorrow.
Yeah, right. I'll fully support that. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for talking with us, and have a good day now.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks a lot.